Flask, tell me about episode 5.
I'll tell you about episode 5.
What kind of thrilling conclusion do we have to the Life is Strange franchise?
Oh, it's like a roller coaster, I think you call them.
All right, take me down it. Let's go up and then down and then back up again.
7 weeks later in Arizona. The three of them, Karen, Daniel, and Sean, are living in a desert commune of hippie people. There's some stuff in the notebook that kind of... I was kind of being tongue-in-cheek earlier about Daniel being so easily and quickly manipulated. You know, like I'm not trying to say it's totally unrealistic, because the game tries to indicate how exactly he was manipulated. What I gather is that Elizabeth basically targeted his guilt and his trauma to make him feel like he needed her to help him, to heal him or guide him, you know? Which does kind of conflict with how willing Daniel is initially to turn Sean away, when part of Daniel's guilt is supposed to be about being bad to Sean. But I'm no psychologist.
The cynic in me wonders if happened that were added in episode 5 because of criticism of episode 4. But hey,
that seems entirely possible. Yeah, that's plausible. I could see. I wouldn't put it past them. You know, like, oh, Daniel came off as really unsympathetic in that previous episode. What did we do? Well, we'd explain exactly how guilty he felt. You know.
Right. So retroactively, he is sympathetic. That's the way emotions work.
But you know, he's a kid, and it's like, okay, fine. You know, he's confused.
Sure.
So you go around this desert commune, just kind of poking around, talking to the inhabitants, the people who live there, and talking at objects, you know, inspecting stuff. While I was in this part, I was thinking about how it feels like they really wanted to make a story. Basically what I said before, like wanting to make a story about being on the road, and I guess they essentially achieved that with like the characters you meet, and they're people, but they're characters.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not super engaging, as we discussed, but that's just, you know, what they actually choose to display in the game is not super engaging. But the characters and the areas you encounter, you know, decently rendered in terms of, you know, they're 3-dimensional. I guess it just feels to me like either they didn't commit enough to that idea, to the on the road meeting characters idea, or they didn't execute it in a natural way, because we could pretty much predict the result of any encounter, as we talked about.
I think that is probably more of the thing.
Yeah, like it was not enough. It was too little, and I don't know, too uneven.
Yeah, I'm not at all saying a road story can't be good.
Right.
I'm saying they did not do a good road story.
Yeah. I don't even know what makes a good road story, but I know a
read,
not so good one when I see it, I guess.
Have you read The Road?
Oh, Cormac, or what's his name?
Cormac McCarthy. Yeah.
Okay.
Cormac McCarthy.
I have not read it. No, I know of it.
It's a good book. That's what
Isn't
my
it also a
brain
super
always,
depressing book?
It is, but that's what my brain always goes to, like a really good road story. It is a very depressing book.
But everything is rendered like realistically while they're out meeting people, encounter situations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, something I'll say is that during this stretch of episode 5 was maybe the first time I felt sort of fond of Sean and Daniel as characters. They do take some time to sort of just have them doing stuff as brothers.
Right.
I mean, I liked them enough before. They were fine. It's not like they were offending me, but I mean, Daniel sort of was.
I think that's probably the thing that you could praise about the game is a good relationship for the most part. I mean, sometimes the characters do random things for plot contrivance, but overall, it's fun playing the older brother.
Yeah, because you get to, like, you know, see their bond get tested and come back.
Right. Sure.
And it's only now with the trials they've been through and the lessons they've learned that I sort of feel more connected to them than
it's
I
not all
before.
bad. There is some decent drama here and there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that did happen. I suppose that's the point of stories, though, to become more attached to the characters.
Sure.
So after a little treasure hunt with Daniel, Karen and this guy David return from shopping, and it turns out to be David Madsen,
as in Chloe's dad,
Chloe's stepfather, David Madsen from Life is Strange 1.
That was the guy that we hated, but turned out to be a pretty decent guy. Well, I hated, but turned out to be a pretty decent guy, and is involved in, I think, the best sequence in Life is Strange.
Yes, the episode 5 sequence where you're having to direct him, right?
Yeah, dude. Man, I think about that sequence every now and then. That's a really good time loop sequence.
Like rapid fire time looping, yeah.
Right.
And at this point, oh, by the way, so like, cool, David Madsen's back. He is the David Madsen of episode 1 of Life is Strange 1, because remember, everything was reset. So he never had all the character development that we saw in the first game.
Oh, right.
But at this point, he's gone the ponytail desert dweller route.
Spoilers for Life is Strange 1, right? But
right.
Does he, so if I recall, when we initially recorded, we think we accidentally picked the wrong option, where Arcadia Bay was destroyed. We did. Okay.
But I did fix it.
You went back and you replayed the whole game like a madman with the right option.
Yes,
and that paid off here.
Yeah, no, it did.
Because David probably alluded to events of Life is Strange 1.
Yes. In a conversation about child rearing, he explains how he was a changed man after Chloe died, and presumably he and Joyce separated soon after. It's a bit interesting because he doesn't actually have the character development, but he was changed to be basically the same person as he would have been by Chloe's death, Like it was enough of a shock to his system.
You hear anything about Max?
No.
wait, which I appreciate. I didn't expect to.
Right. But like why would David care about Max at all?
Right.
And yeah, the Chloe's death he's talking about is, of course, her getting shot in the bathroom. So he would have been in step-douche territory, and then apparently that shook him up enough. Anyway, you can also overhear a conversation. Oh wait, no, sorry. There's another thing I have to mention before that. Karen has a talk with her sons. She tells them it's about time to move on because the feds are closing in. Apparently,
right.
They release some floating lanterns into the sky in a big canyon. It's just like they just release some floating lanterns into the sky at night. And then the next morning, she tells them she's going to turn herself in to the police to give them a head start towards the border. So I guess that'll hold them up. The game then allows you to leave a letter for her, and it gives you a number of options. It lets you rewrite as many times as you want. So I tried out most of the combinations of lines that it gives you. Turns out my first instinct was still the closest to what I would want to, what I would have wanted to write. But as with most anything like that, I wish there was some place in between a lot of the choices. Can't really be done, but because they need distinct choices, but it's not exactly what you want to say as a player that you might want to say, and definitely not exactly what I wanted to say. So I ended up leaving a letter that definitely didn't forgive her or read as understanding of her decisions as a mother, but still like glad to have spent time with her and thankful for the actual help she provided. I think that's fair.
That's fair, and probably more rational than what Sean would have came up with.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't playing as Sean. I was playing as me playing Sean.
Yeah, but that's hard not to do when you're given these choices. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Because you can definitely be like, "Mommy," like it was. You're my mother again, and I didn't want to do that.
I might have missed it earlier, but I believe you said that David Madsen has a ponytail.
He does.
Okay. So we leave this letter for Mom.
Wait, why did you bring up his ponytail?
I just wanted to get that clear because
Oh, okay.
When I asked for clarification about David, I think you were about to talk about his ponytail.
He does have a ponytail. He's a hippie man with a ponytail.
Roger.
But and also to mention, I did write the letter in a way that it would ensure that she would go through with the plan to turn herself in, because I felt that was justified. Yeah. I basically said, "Good, it's a good thing you're doing, Mom." I mean, not Mom, Karen. But then after that, it lets you poke around David's camper a little bit, and one little nice thing is he has a picture of Joyce and Chloe, of course, and he has an awkward, unfinished letter to Joyce. But also, you find one of Chloe's signs from her door, I believe, which is the parental advisory explicit content. It's up on his wall.
That's cool. That's cool.
Which, of course, Sean is he thinks it's odd, but for David to have, but we know the meaning of it. I thought that was a nice touch.
Of course. It is nice.
A little less of a nice touch is what I saw in the next scene, which is he has a big in memoriam tattoo on his chest, which is maybe a little much. And I did learn later that apparently it can either be for Chloe or for Joyce, depending on who died in your game. So in our game, he has a big in memoriam Chloe tattoo on his chest, which I was like, oh, okay. All right. So he has a heart-to-heart with Sean, and he gives him a police scanner so they can keep apprised of the police's activities. And Chloe is actually brought up again in relation to the Diaz brothers' current trials, and he suggests in a kind way that the option of Sean turning himself in is still on the table as a way to work towards actual freedom. And I had Sean consider it, but of course you can't accept that.
Right. There's still a game to be told.
Yes, yeah. So then I eavesdropped on a phone call between David and Joyce. Yeah, there's this much with David in here, in which mundane matters. Among mundane matters, it comes up that Nathan Prescott is still in prison for shooting Chloe, but that they're concerned that he'll be lawyered out at some point. So that's as much word about Life is Strange 1 stuff as you get.
All right, I like that. Kind of just a subtle nod. Well, not so subtle because David's in the middle of it, but
and a big honking tattoo. So Sean and Daniel leave the commune, and you get to choose whether or not to hug Karen, which I chose not to, because I think that would be a little much. After that, they hit the road, and I was able to convince Daniel that it would probably be okay in Porto Lobos, and he came around. He was having doubts again. So they reached the border wall, and they find out over the scanner that Karen did get arrested. And Daniel asks, with childlike innocence, why there's a wall for Mexico but not for Canada. And Sean responds with, I don't know, as if to underline the pointlessness of such a thing, such a construction.
It's very pointed political commentary.
Yeah. But that, to me, just demonstrates that Sean can't even consider a practical reason why you would have a physical wall, which you'd think most people would be able to. Even if they had like a personal stake in it, you'd think he'd be able to explain to his younger brother, who literally doesn't know anything about this, the political reasons.
Why the other side.
Yeah. But no, he just says, I don't know, because it's supposed to be poignant. You could say, no country on earth is okay with people just illegally immigrating, but, it doesn't have to get in the political quagmire, but it's whatever.
Right, exactly.
Daniel, he rends apart the giant metal wall in a big symbolic Magneto display.
Whoa!
And then it has you...
Superpowers!
I have the ability to control metal. It has you play walking back to the car.
There's no borders for me.
No borders. Yeah, no more walls, and he just brings them down. But then it has you play walking back to the car with Daniel while he talks about all the things he's looking forward to in Mexico.
Oh, so know what's not about to happen. You know something's about to happen. That shit ain't happening.
As you slowly walk
Daniel... Right? Like, go! Door's open, go!
So, of course, I'm like, they're going to get caught. And yeah, next moment, Daniel gets shot again.
Oh my god.
Just grazed in the arm, but he passes out immediately. And, of course, it's another couple of yahoos who sort of citizens arrest Sean. But they do freak out a little bit about shooting a kid.
These are our borders, pal.
Yeah, our country. You can hilariously explain that you were going into Mexico, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that is pretty funny, though.
Yeah, they're like, what? That's still illegal. So some actual border cops arrive at that point, and they get pissed at the yahoos and arrest them, too.
Oh, that's good.
So thankfully, at least the cops are not, like, on board with all this.
Right.
And Sean immediately accidentally reveals that he's Sean Diaz, so the cops now know that.
Yikes.
So they're like, wait, you're Sean Diaz?
It's very poor OPSEC for being on the road for months and months now.
Right. So you wake up in a holding cell next to a Mexican couple. The yahoos are in the cell next door. Turns out Daniel's being kept elsewhere, but is likely fine. He'll be okay. So you can get to talking with the Mexican couple, and it's actually a nice conversation about like what their deal is and how you relate to each other. Anyway, then the yahoos butt in and starts giving me timed responses. Ugh. But I didn't know that, so I missed the first one and it really annoyed me. I hate those.
Oh yeah, I hate the time ones.
I almost always dislike time responses because in real life you just say what you think, but in video games it's making you read a bunch of different options, and by the time you do, your time's run out. So it's just not. It doesn't seem fair to me. It doesn't seem fun to me. Anywho, I settle everyone down, and a cop comes in and takes Sean away to interrogate him. And he reads out a laundry list of crimes, but because I never had Sean and Daniel do anything particularly awful, it mostly comes down to like property damage and stealing that one car that one time.
That's fine.
Because I never like killed anyone.
Yeah.
They're still trying to blame the police officer's death on Sean, of course. And the cop asks why, if it was an accident, like Sean claimed, he and his brother ran. To which I said I panicked, and soon afterwards it was too late to go back. Mostly I chose responses that seemed to make the officer sympathetic, and I believe you could make him unsympathetic if you chose stuff where it's like I don't care. So soon enough, Daniel comes blasting in. Another Magneto scene comes blasting in and breaks Sean free. I chose to free you, so you can choose to free the Mexican couple and the yahoos. I chose to free the Mexican couple, I chose to free both of them. All parties involved, just because I wanted them to be confused by mercy, because I think that's funny. Like, why would you do that?
For sure. Fuck anarchy, dude.
On the way out of the station, you encounter a bunch of officers, and you can be like more lethal or more non-lethal. Of course, I choose the most non-lethal stuff possible, doing the right thing, of course, and just get them out of the way. So the brothers grab their car and they head for the border again, still aiming for Mexico. For some reason, Sean decides to drive right up to the actual border gate, the border crossing gate.
And not through the hole they made?
Nah. And the gate is, of course, roadblocked by the police. And they're just immediately surrounded. I don't know what. The hole is not even brought up. I don't know why. Then, so here's the big climax of how well you've instilled morality into Daniel, which we did a pretty good job of, actually, because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. And Sean gets a choice between surrender or telling Daniel to punch through to Mexico. I chose surrender.
What did you do? Yeah, I figured. I mean, that sounds like the rational choice. Like, come on, you're kids. Like,
right, and you don't want to kill a bunch of people.
Right.
Because that never leads to anything good. So Sean thankfully then explains why that's the right choice for them. Basically, that they are people who do the right thing and they're not criminals, and you have to, prove that by your actions. They don't want people to get hurt. Right. Which is exactly why I chose to surrender. and Daniel accepts that. So the bros get arrested. And all that's left after that point is the ending montage. And the ending I got depicts a series of photos. Actually, all the endings depict the series of photos, but it's always different photos. So my ending, a bunch of photos of Daniel growing up in Beaver Creek with their grandparents. Alone. He is having a normal life, playing with Chris again, graduating from high school, making friends, getting a job, moving into a home, stuff of a normal life. You also see that Sean is in prison, but still he's making art and keeping in contact with everybody. Sure enough, we go to 15 years later, and Sean is being released. Daniel, Lila, and Karen all are there to greet him. And apparently that's determined as well, of course, how you handled Lila and Karen.
Right.
And a time later, Sean and Daniel are trekking back to that same first campsite in the forest, with the one with the rock overhang.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean's got a spiffy new glass eye. At night, that night, Daniel's excitedly telling Sean something, and Sean breaks down, and Daniel holds him. Because 15 years is a long-ass time to be in prison.
For sure.
And in the morning, they get in their cars and they part ways. And Daniel gives off one last wolf howl before telekinetically opening his car door and driving away. And there's some implication there with Sean that he's going to go back on the open road as a free man. Kind of like Brody from the first episode. Like he's just going to travel, meet people. So yeah, that's the ending I got.
That I kind of like that ending actually.
Yeah, I mean it's fair, you know. Except I'm not. I've liked to. Obviously, they can't do this, but it's like, okay, what did they actually charge Sean with?
Right. Yeah. For sure.
But you know, whatever. Okay, he got 15 years. That seems like a lot, but okay.
He's Mexican.
He's Mexican. Yeah, 15 years for being Mexican. So, some choice results for the episode. I kept my distance to Karen, didn't hug her, and I wrote her what the game calls a conciliating note.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I treated everyone pretty well at the commune. It's called Away. You meet a bunch of people there, and I treated everyone well and became friends with them. I treated the prisoners at the Mexican couple and the Yahoos. I treated them well and freed them all. I got a bunch of choices which boiled down to, had Daniel made the morally conscious decisions and be good? I think those kinds of choices from previous episodes did influence his actions in this episode. Like actually listening to Sean and being concerned about hurting people and stuff. Like,
right. That is nice.
Yeah.
The payoff there.
So, like, ultimately, it's like, okay, Daniel, you know, respected my wishes and did right. And once you get back to the main menu of the game, instead of the Diaz's empty yard, like it was at the beginning, now all three Diaz boys, father and two sons, are hanging out together on a nice afternoon.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So I like that ending, but it was like that ending was not worth the journey. But I did like that ending actually.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you about the other endings?
Sure.
I know some stuff about the other endings.
Yeah, well, give me the highlights.
There's another quote unquote good ending that I think some people see as like better than the one I got, which is Sean makes it alone to Mexico, and Daniel sacrifices his freedom and stays behind. But that one ends almost unrealistically, like saccharine. You know, somehow they released Daniel without any issue. They just released him after multiple cops witnessed him using telekinetic abilities at the border. And he goes on to live about as normal a life as in the ending I got, except sometimes he uses his powers for like good deeds. So 6 years later, he's living just fine with the grandparents, and he's in contact with Karen, and he gets a letter from Sean, who's in Mexico, who is also doing just fine, and possibly hooked back up with whoever the love interest was from episode 3. So If you had like he hooked up with Cassidy in my ending, or he would have hooked up with Cassidy if I had gotten that ending.
Right.
And everyone's happy, but the bros are, they're still separated for now. And there is one point Daniel does appear to have a tracking bracelet on his ankle, so he's still under observation. But that's the extent of the problems, really. That and Sean having to be in Mexico. But it overall comes across as a lot more like happy because all the characters were happy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Instead of like Sean being broken. There's another one where another ending where Sean tries to surrender, but Daniel refuses you. And he successfully blasts through the roadblock, but Sean gets killed in the process by bullets. And in the aftermath of that, Daniel becomes a criminal and a gang member in Mexico who finally remembers his brother and sketches like his brother did, but also is a gang member and uses his TK powers for evil.
It's kind of badass, but that's definitely a good ending.
And the last one is Sean not surrendering. You choose not to surrender, and Daniel basically goes full Akira at the border, and he enacts a huge bloodless carnage. There's no blood. But he wipes everybody out. And his torn shirt even becomes a cape, like what's his name? Tetsuo. And that results in the two of them, Sean and Daniel, making it to Mexico and becoming slightly thuggish criminals who run a repair shop together.
I kind of like the Akira ending.
It's a cool ending.
I might go watch Daniel get Akira later.
Sure, yeah. He's throwing shit around.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good ending, but it's a cool ending. It's a good way to put it.
But after watching all those endings, the fact that none of them are better than or waste more of their brothers' lives than if they had just stayed in the fucking yard at the beginning of episode 1 sort of justifies to me the standpoint I've always held, which is if they had just stopped at any point along their journey up to a certain point, the results would have probably been better than any of the endings.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the law clearly couldn't nail Daniel on the death of the police officer, like we always pointed out, or else they would have. Like in that one ending, they weren't able to, apparently. And there would be no evidence suggesting anyone else was responsible. So all the boys were doing while running away was just racking up trauma and like actual crimes.
Right.
And I know they didn't know that. Hindsight is 2020, but I know the ending where they're separated but happy is good for them. But there could have been they could have been together and happy too after not much time.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, okay, that's the game, like if they just been anyway, they panicked. They're kids.
Yeah, you can forgive it to a certain extent.
Yeah. I think
it does not. It's hard. It's hard how much worse that game is than Life is Strange 1. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah. Honestly,
because I had heard some buzz. I knew. I had reason to believe, at least, it was not going to be the same game. But
yeah,
I was quite disappointed, even with tempered hype.
Yeah, it never quite captured. Even the parts that were like better written or whatever were not actually engaging to me.
We're not that captivating. I understand. Yeah.
And maybe I'm not the target audience, but I apparently I was the target audience for the first game because I liked it. Honestly, I'd like to see the time rewind mechanic in more games of similar genre to Life is Strange 1,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a powerful mechanic that's worth using more.
It's a cool mechanic.
But even if Life is Strange is not going to do that again, like this franchise, I think it'd be helped to stand out more by letting the protagonist have some kind of intriguing mechanic to wield,
For sure.
Yeah, like I said before, I think the time rewinding did a lot of lifting for the first game in terms of gameplay, and the quirky charm filled in the rest. I'd like to see more games like that.
I agree.
So that's Life is Strange 2.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked about it to death.
Yeah.
Overall, I say do not recommend. I do not recommend Life is Strange 2. I do recommend Life is Strange 1. It's a really good game. And also, Before the Storm is a pretty good game, too.
Yeah, it's that game still has sort of the charm of the first game, which was good.
Yeah, it's good. It's not as good as the first game. It's so good.
The funny part is that game is like almost a proto this game because it has a secondary character who you don't control who demonstrates powers, but they don't even do anything with that in that game.
I was gonna mention at some point. I feel like that game, I can give a pass to that to an extent because it's subtle about it. You know what I mean? It leaves like the character doesn't seem to realize she has powers. You know?
Yes. So it doesn't rely on that sort of story beat at all.
Right, exactly. I think that's it, man. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I've explained.
Life is Strange too. It was frankly a disappointing enough game that not only was I not playing it, and I'm glad I didn't buy it, but I did not even finish watching it.
And I just wanted to, I just wanted to wrap it up. I didn't want to leave it hanging on the channel as like, oh, we finished episode 3. What, are we ever going to finish it? It's like, this is the end. just to tie up loose ends. Now you know what happens.
Now you know.
Now you
and
know.
If you don't know, now you know.
Right. I don't know if there's anything else to say.
No, I think it's just time to go play some real video games. Thanks, everybody, for watching, listening, whatever format this comes out in. Thank you for paying attention to us. We're sorry if we were a little critical on the game. We come from a place of love because we like good stories and games, and we're went into this with a lot of hope.
Right.
And be sure to check out the podcast. I'm sure you have already because it's our primary vehicle, but look for Broken Campfire wherever podcasts are found. And hey, if this video, podcast, audio thing led you to some strong feelings, why don't you just let us know? Give us some feedback.
Sure.
Let us know where we got it wrong. Send it to brokencampfire@gmail.com. Flask, why don't you give us the final line tonight?
Oh, shit. Wow. Life sure is strange.
Is that joke? Again.
Is that joke too old yet? Is that overdone?
Just try one more time.
Okay. Life sure is strange. Life is strange.
I respect you for not doing the life is strange too.
Well, life is strange too.
Good night, Flask.
But do you understand that, like, life is strange?
Good night, Flask.
I hope it's not too, like, heavily... I feel like you didn't get as much chance to talk as I wanted, but I don't know what you would have said, Like, I don't blame you at all, because I don't know.
No, I mean, if I wasn't talking, I was just trying to absorb it, and
yeah,
I was probably agreeing with what you were saying,
Yeah, I don't even know how you would have...
I mean, you could throw this in somewhere, what I'm saying now, but, like at a certain point, the criticisms just kind of become redundant. Because it really is just the same kind of shit over and over and over. It's like, yeah, okay, I mean, we get it. These are the tricks that you're going to use.
That's
true. You're not going to try much new, except, I guess, at the very end, the ending was alright. Given the hand that you get dealt our protagonist, that was a serviceable ending.
And they did have 4 endings instead of 2, so that's double.
Yeah.
Life is Strange 2 doubled the endings of Life is Strange 1. Wow.
We're not going to do Tell Me Why, right?
What do you mean we're not going to?